Hello, friends and fellow pioneers. Today I have the honor to share with you my friend and mentor, Mark Vincent. I met Mark many years ago. I believe it was fall of 2006 or so, around that time. And it was a couple of years after God gave me a revelation that everything worth having requires a process. And he was the founder of an international consulting firm of process consultants. And I became one of their image consulting experts. And we've done a lot of things together through the years. But I really owe a lot to Mark's generosity and his innovative ways that he brought us together. He brought people from all over the world together to work and collaborate. And it just instilled in me a deeper, I always had been a learner, but just a deeper sense of growing and developing and just drawing out my God-given talents and skills and the frameworks and the excellence in which Mark pursued to do things and to unite people just really has inspired me so much and influenced a lot of what I've created, that I've been blessed to create and put together. So it's just such an honor. Thank you, Mark, for joining us. And
My pleasure.
and hopefully it will bring some of that feeling back to you. And so stewardship is something like that you embody, and generosity is something that you embody, and innovation and growth. And one of the pillars of the 12 pillars of producing freedom that we teach in our academy is education and growth. Also, another one is faith. And I wanted to share with you or to share with our audience and let you share with them how you see the trends going. I'd love for you to just tell them a little bit about yourself and where you are at in your I call it a pioneering journey, but in your innovation journey. And also economics is a big part of also what we teach people that has to do with stewardship. And so I would love for you to just share with us how that has been has influenced your life, your work, and what you're doing right now. You have some exciting things going on. And so with that, I just turn it back over to you. Just give us what's in your heart for such a time as this, for people who are looking to grow on their journey to fulfill their God-given calling.
Well, thank you, and thanks for the opportunity. Let's see if I can do this some justice. I think I'll try to describe kind of where I've lived and worked, and then, as you said, what's kind of happening now. And I want to make sure that those who are listening can really apply this to their own lives. So I live and work at an intersection, and I think everybody else has some kind of an intersection. Build it out, the more it can demand of them if they're not focused up and going deeper. So if we're going to keep growing all of our lives, we have to keep choosing what we're going to hold in our hands because things will drop out of them because we can't hold it all. So we have to keep choosing and keep choosing and keep growing. So the intersection I live at is a place where you have someone who has to run an organization. They have to be a better leader because they're running the organization. So it's the organization and the leader. And then money has a way of showing up and touching all of those things. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean money just in the sense of currency. I mean more in the sense of exchange, that it takes something to make something happen. If I want to return a pond on my property to a pristine condition because somebody fouled it up, it costs money to do it. It takes time to do it. There's some kind of a resource that has to be applied. There'll be some kind of an exchange. So here you have an organization. Here you have a person who's running that organization, which means people are involved in it. And then there's this stuff around money, which tends to be a way of demonstrating whatever it is that makes us crazy. So in that space where money and people and leadership gather is where I've lived and worked. And again, I would say that most people would have some kind of an intersection like that, where the really interesting journeys of their life come together at an intersection and makes them this person that can teach piano to children in the neighborhood, or that has helped them develop a new way of putting metal roofing up on a barn, or whatever it might be. That happens to be mine. And as we've grown my work over the years, shouldn't even say my work. It became what Design Group International is about. And now, after 20 years almost, I stepped out of running that company. I now function as its founder, but it has its own CEO. I'm a part of the partnership. All the operations are being handled now by others. And there's a reason for that. I had to make the choice that I'm talking about. I couldn't keep growing my practice. I couldn't keep learning. I couldn't keep developing new possibilities and run whatever emerged out of that. It reached a point where we were fortunate enough to have the challenge of how do we multiply this out. And if I didn't do that, and if we didn't do that, then the whole thing collapses, because you become a constricting point. You lead yourself into a corner. So how do you get out of it? You start setting things down. You start not doing things. You start letting things break and let somebody else fix it, while you're sitting on your hands wishing that you could fix it. And as a result, we're now through that transition. It's gone very well. And I am now devoting more time to people who are in the same place. Founders of companies, well-established owners of companies who are responsible for many families and the well-being of a lot of people. Any decision they make now affects a lot of people, not just them. And it makes for some really scary moments in their lives, and some feelings of helplessness of how to figure things out. So I'm spending time there. And by moving away from operating the company, I'm now more available to people who are in that moment themselves, so that they can leave a strong legacy for others and give them opportunity to keep growing as well. Because I find that at the top of an organization, if you become a constricting point, you constrict the lives of others. Just as much as you want to give them opportunity, you can remove opportunity. And that's a very ungodly kind of thing to have happen. So I'll stop there. Hopefully, Aurora, I'm getting at what you were asking me about.
Thank you for sharing. Can you still hear me?
I sure can.
Great. Yeah, I mean, you have had such an amazing career, helping people and innovating and pioneering and sowing into people's lives generously so that they can grow. Again, I just have you influenced me so much into just not just learn, even from books and trainings, but just have like the collaboration aspect. And I see that you're even embodying that in your new phase with the Maestro-level leaders, that you're bringing them together to collaborate and to facilitate that. And it's something that I've watched you do all the years that I've known you. That's been pretty consistent, that you like to bring people together so that they can grow, so they can collaborate and have something, a more tangible experience than just an exchange of information. That's what that's the way that I've experienced. And, here we are, we've grown so many years later, but we're still serving families. So we're focusing right now on helping families, and you're helping families directly and indirectly to become, more sustainable in what they're doing, and to be grounded. That's, the wisest move for them, for their family, for how they lead, and how they affect other people. So, I personally just see a lot of similarities in how we're using our gifts to basically teach people in a way that it's amplifying our gifts and amplifying their influence in a positive way. I'm curious how you see, with the world events happening, what are some trends that you're seeing that are some trends to watch out for. We all have some level of responsibility. And you talked about how the people that you work with carry a lot of responsibility on their shoulders, but everybody that's watching right now, and whoever will watch the replay, they carry some responsibility on their shoulders. In creating a sustainable legacy, are there some things to kind of be watching out for? We teach people how to look at their inhibitors, their self-sabotage mechanisms that may cloud their judgment in making decisions under stress, and then look for opportunities that really work with what they're doing. Is there something that you can share about kind of the trends that you're seeing that are impacting leaders in a negative way, and then some positive opportunities that they can be looking for, that opens up doors of opportunities to really create a more sustainable legacy despite the crisis that they're facing?
Well, let's use a couple of words here as ways to anchor a couple of points. So let's talk about simple. Let's talk about triggers. Let's talk about emotional intelligence, which is more than just one word.
Right.
So simple. Matters in the world are very complex.
Mm-hmm.
And we want things to be simple so that we can do something about it. In order for things to be made simple truly, you have to embrace complexity. And if you don't, you will be trying to do something and it won't be addressing what the problem is. And because people want things to be simple, they are saying, I only want to hear what confirms the bias I already have, or the conclusion I've already reached, or the reality that I wish was reality. And I won't accept anything that sounds different than that. So at that point, you have uninformed judgments. You have, I don't want to learn. So I would like to think I can grow a garden here in Idaho, and I have a garden right up this hill, just the way I would do it when I lived in Indiana. Well, the soil's different.
Yeah.
And the terrain is different. And the amount of rain is different. The amount of sunshine is different. The controls are different. So if I say what I already knew is the only thing, I would never have a garden that would grow anything here. I have to work with this real, and there's this thing here called elk that come in and eat everything. So, you have to be really different in how you protect the garden that you put in. So that'd be an example. You have to know what the complexity is, which means you have to pay attention to the context. And you have to be okay with vocabulary changing under your feet. Because if all you are is resisting what is new or what you could learn, you won't solve problems. You'll only have a new set of enemies. The second one, if I talk about triggers, is that it is becoming accepted that we should walk around enraged. We should walk around angry. That we have the right to yell at people, to not be civil, to let the incivility of others be the permission for our own incivility. I get to do this because you do this. We see it playing out on a national stage,
Right.
but it's also playing out between neighbors and within families and so forth. And we're walking around. Years ago, a man named Joseph Bailey wrote about this. He talked about people who have all of their nerves growing on the outside of their bodies. So if you touch them, they're going to say, ouch. If you speak to them, they're going to say, ouch, everything hurts. Everything is terrible. And so we are very, very easily triggered. And that seems to be a growing phenomenon, that we're angry and ready to yell. The third, then, would actually be one of the ways that we work with this, and that's emotional intelligence. It's to be aware of what our words do, to be aware enough of ourself to know how we show up in a room, to be aware of ourselves enough to know that there are choices that we have and how we will respond, that there are times to be angry and there are times to be quiet. And there are times to spend money, and there are times to not. And there are times to play as much as there are times to work, and to be aware of our environment, to be aware of what happens with us, with others, gives us a broader menu and makes us richer people. And it lets us bring things to others rather than cause them harm. And this is so true when we have to cooperate with others. Like if you're going to do what some of your clients and some of your audience is doing, you have to have good relationships with your neighbors.
Right.
Right. And those neighbors are going to be different than you. You want to live off the land, yes, but you don't do it all by yourself. Not well, not in a way that you flourish, not a way that you can do it next year also, not in a way that you actually live as opposed to just not die. You have to have great relationships, which means you have to actually not just escape people. You have to be even better at living within your family and living with your neighbors and bringing value to others and growing in respect and mutual consideration for others. So I think there is some growing awareness of that. But right now, the awareness is growing because we're seeing how broken our civil behaviors are becoming. So those would be three things that I would point to.
That's awesome. I love how you brought it together. I even took some notes. We do talk to people about, getting flooded with so many ideas. You can spend a decade on YouTube collecting ideas, reading books and different things, but it's not actionable. So even though they're embracing the complexity and all the information, to get it to where, you are actually able to move forward. And I really love how you combined all the three things to where you can really show up in a wholesome way in the world, because you're assuming responsibility for what how you're receiving things, what you're giving, and how you're managing. The Ecclesiastes talks about how there's a time and a season for everything, and we're a steward to have the wisdom to know what time it is, right?
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, and I just really appreciate you sharing that, because that brings really a lot of awareness and responsibility back to us as stewards and managers. And we're not helpless and we're not hopeless. We're active participants in the legacy that we're creating.
Right. Right. Yeah. Otherwise, we end up with I'm running away. I am hiding. I am abdicating responsibility. I'm becoming even less emotionally aware because I don't want to have to deal with the complexities of life. Well, life is complex and it's short and it's brutal and in some ways, and we need each other. We have to grow and bring our God-given gifts to it in order to make it possible for our children and their children after them to have the possibility of a sustaining life also.
Absolutely. I just it's every year becomes more evident that we cannot do things alone, and the idea of one of the first paradigm shifts that we require people to agree to grow into is that becoming self-sufficient by definition is impossible, because we didn't create ourselves. We're not going to advance ourselves. We need God. We need each other. And to be able to create vibrant ecosystems, we have to be strategic in understanding what we need to create a wholesome perspective, a wholesome plan, and then we can start becoming more sustainable and then become stronger ourselves and as a community. It starts with us and our perspective, and that responsibility is it's just such a good, and it seems simple. It's easier said than done. But that these are some times that it's a great opportunity to grow and really to be set apart, to be different, that we're not just letting the current ride us, that we can act in faith and not in fear. We can embrace what's going on instead of avoid it, and be a light in this situation that's so challenging. I actually love challenges, and that's why I love process design and process consulting, because I love taking really complex situations and distilling down, what's going on and what are the patterns, to see, what are some things that just repeat themselves because we're human, and there's these patterns, and being able to just walk people through, embrace that complexity, and to see, okay, here are some patterns to be watching out for, what's true in this situation. And then to be able to be empowered that, okay, when this complexity comes, this is how we sort things out so that we can show up grounded, and it doesn't have to derail us, because it is, all that complexity can blindside us, and then we don't really have a framework for how to respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Mark, I would really love it if you would share what you're doing right now. You're launching a new program for, you're in a new season, and I really would love it if we could end with, how can people find out more about what you're doing, and if it rings true for them, or if they know of someone that is in a similar situation, how they can reach out and tap into the genius and the collaboration that you are bringing to the world.
Sure. I'll try to keep this succinct. It's something I'm very passionate about, of course. Uh, Over the years, for me, there's been a lot of work to help to develop the leadership capacity of people. And I've kind of arrived at this place of describing it as 3 turns. It's just easy to remember that way. Turn 1, you're learning to lead yourself. You're becoming aware of your capacities, your skills. You're showing up at work. You're behaving. You're disciplined. You're getting past early young adult mistakes. You're demonstrating that you're competent. You're often saying to the boss, whoever that is, "Look at me. Look what I can do. Give me a chance." And there are it's a needed part of the journey. And for some people, that's really kind of where their career will end, because begin and end, because they're very good at what they do. They're really good at running the machinery, at delivering the service, at working right hand in glove with their client or customer, and seeing this repeatable task happen with excellence. And we need people like that in every profession. People who take pride in their work. A turn 2 leader has risen to a point in an organization and taking some responsibility where they're being asked to take on the whole organization. And this is a very important pivot point. So we call it a turn, because at that point, they're going to be walking away from the excellent artisanship that they've been doing, because now they're going to run a whole organization. It's not going to be so much about their work. It's going to be about their vision for an organization, and the leadership of the people who are artisans themselves are going to help make this vision happen. They need resources. That's often a very isolating time for people. I've often heard people say, when I got moved up, every time I got a promotion, I had fewer friends. It's hard to get real communication, real data to actually help you run it, because people are wanting to ingratiate themselves with you, or they think that you won't listen to them, or whatever reason. So getting those folks well-resourced, increasing their leadership quotient matters. There are a lot of resources for persons in turn 1 or turn 2, and occasionally I'm coach to some of them, or referring them to a resource, and that's great. When you move into a third turn, it's a very rare place to go. It's not for everybody, but there is a small percentage of leaders who grow an organization to a point, and there's enough gravitas and respect for them that it becomes a launch point for them to make a difference in the larger world beyond their company. There are a number of examples I could use. I'm not going to do that, because sometimes when I mention a name, people might say, "Oh, I really like them." Or they might think, "Oh, I really don't like them." And that's not the point. The point is, these are people who have arrived and are trying to figure out what comes next. How do I build future value? How do I manage succession? How do I build legacy so that this whole thing doesn't fall apart and people lose their jobs and all that when I'm done? And at that point, it's a very unique journey. There's no pat answer for this. Folks are up against a new forest that's shrouded in mist, and there's a marsh in front of them, and they can take a step and shine their flashlight and see what they're seeing and decide what they'll do next. They're having to discover all over again, learn all over again. And let me give you just one quick example, then I'll tell you what we're doing. An example would be if you compare a Fortune 500 company now, I mean, the list of Fortune 500 companies now to 10 years ago or 20 years ago, the majority of names have changed. And the reason is companies don't figure out the future value stuff. People retire, they get fired, they get bought out, they get merged, and a whole lot of value disappears. Jobs get lost. People are having to retool their careers because those turn 3 leaders weren't figuring out the future value. They were just trying to do it as they'd always done it. And that creates a number of problems. So what we're doing is we're gathering those turn 3 leaders in Maestro-level leader cohorts as companions to each other as they're figuring it out. There's no set curriculum for this because it wouldn't apply. The best resources are figured out in a specific context. So these folks have to figure it out as well. And so across several years, these folks are doing that kind of work to figure out future value, legacy, succession in order to keep the enterprises sustainable, just like people might be saying, I want to have sustainable land, not land is denuded and toxic and no longer able to sustain my family. I want to have a heritage here. We're doing that on an organizational level. And that's what it's about. So we have a cohort that starts at the end of January. We'll be starting another one shortly after that. And we're developing a number of resources, including a podcast that we call the Third Turn Podcast. And that's thirdturnpodcast.com. And you can learn more about this at Maestro-level-leaders.com.
Thank you, Mark, for sharing your project and your vision for supporting such an important number of leaders, the people that find themselves in those situations that affect so many people. And thank you for your leadership in all the areas that you have been faithful to share your gifts in writing resources, in creating new companies and creating new teams. And now I am certain that the group that you bring together will be blessed to have each other and to have you facilitating that experience. This is the time more than ever to be connected to people that are like-minded and that are seeking to be more resilient, more sustainable and stronger in what they're doing, instead of, like you said, just either giving up or staying or not growing, staying stagnant. Being around other people that are moving forward or iterating, it's just a really good philosophy to have, to always look for people to mastermind with and to be in fellowship with, that are not complacent, that are growing. And so thank you for your work. We will put the link, I will update the details on the link to include the 2 links that you shared. And it's just been an honor, and always it's so refreshing and encouraging and inspiring to when we get to share what's going on in each other's lives and work. Is there anything else that you would like to share?
I will only say thank you for the opportunity. I believe you're finding a lane here and you're making a difference in the world, you and Jason, in your own way. And I look forward to seeing what you're doing grow and make a continued difference. So I wish you well also, and thank you. And Merry Christmas.
Well, thank you very much. Blessings to all of you watching. And so as I like to close all of our broadcasts with a blessing. And so may the Lord bless you and keep you and shine his face towards you and be gracious to you, turn his countenance towards you and give you shalom peace. Be blessed.
Thank you.